a storm coming.
Kuna dhoruba ambayo inakuja
Upon the face of the earth.
juu ya uso wa dunia.
I am coming from the storm.
Ninatoka kwa dhoruba.
I have already seen the storm in the dream.
Tayari nimekwishaona dhoruba katika ndoto.
The Lord has come out
Bwana ametoka
with a storm
akiwa na dhoruba
to strike the earth
kuigonga dunia
for their iniquity,
kwa ajili ya udhalimu wao,
for their sin,
kwa ajili ya dhambi
for
yao,
their blackmail,
kwa ajili ya
for their
matukano yao,
blasphemy,
kwa ajili ya makufuru yao,
abomination, immorality.
usherati.
Hallelujah.
Haleluya. Kutawaka
on that day.
katika siku hiyo.
I tell you,
Nakwambia
it is coming to an end.
inafikia mwisho.
Because I'm standing by the wall.
Kwa sababu nasimama kwa ukuta.
And I can see far.
Na naweza kuona mbali.
Seer.
Muonaji.
Seeing far.
Akiona mbali.
I see difficult days ahead of you.
Naona siku zenye utata mwingi mbele zenu.
The Lord is coming out.
Bwana yuaja
to judge the people of the earth.
Kwa hukumu watu wa ulimwengu.
For their blasphemy.
Kwa ajili ya makufuru yao.
For their sin.
Kwa ajili ya dhambi yao.
For their blackmail.
Kwa ajili ya kupaka matope yao.
Evil.
Uovu.
Wickedness.
Udhalimu.
Immorality.
Usherati.
Corruption.
Ufisadi.
Murder.
Uwaji.
Abortions.
Kwa vya mimba.
Lust.
Tamaa.
A fair warning.
Onyo nzuri
comes with counsel.
Laja na ushauri.
Repent.
Mupate kutubu.
And enter the safety of the Lord.
Na mkaingie katika usalama wa Bwana.
That he may preserve you.
Kwamba akawahifadhi.
The Lord has come out.
Bwana ametoka
with a storm.
Akiwa na dhoruba.
To strike the earth.
Kuigonga dunia.
For their iniquity.
Kwa ajili ya udhalimu wao.
For their sin.
Kwa ajili ya dhambi yao.
For their blackmail.
Kwa ajili ya
for their blasphemy.
Kwa ajili ya makufuru yao.
Abomination. Immorality.
Usherati.
Hallelujah.
Kutawaka
on that day.
Katika siku hiyo.
Of God coming to Kisumu. Kisumu Word Expo. What does it mean for God to visit you, Kisumu, to visit your town? The hour when God the Father has decided to come to you, Kisumu. The cloud of God is coming. And consider Kenya as a big city. There you go. Consider the earth. There you go then. The visitation of God the Father himself. And when God comes, Kisumu, the world, what will he do in the day of thy visitation? Kisumu, the visitation of God is coming to town. Kenya, the visitation of God is coming to town. The world, the cloud of God is coming from heaven to visit the earth. So this appertains to New Zealand, the United States of America, Europe, everywhere. It's coming to earth. The cloud of God is coming. The cloud of God is coming. The glory of God is coming from the throne of God to the earth. And these are the words he says about the visitation. He's coming to find where the lying pen of the scribe have handled his word falsely. He's coming to check if the pulpit has preached it right. So the Lord is coming to town, Kisumu, Kenya, Africa, the world. He's coming to check at the opening address, has the word been treated justly? Or instead, you have prescribed it grievously. You have to bring down the idols of Egypt. You have some idols around you there. Some idol worship. is coming to bring them down. Kenya, Europe, Finland, Spain, United States, South America, Concepcion, Chile, all the way to Brisbane, Canberra, to Gisborne, New Zealand, the end of the earth, South Korea, Incheon, Boryong, Busan, Beijing, Shanghai, Fushan. The Lord is coming to town, and He says He's coming to correct the worship. And yet the Lord is so patient. He gives you time, blessed people, between the announcement today and then, that you may not be afflicted by His coming, that you may take the benefit, you may take the blessing. He's so patient, He gives time for repentance. God is coming to visit. The church on the earth, Jehovah Yahweh, is coming in His cloud to visit and prepare a people unto the kingdom of God, a people unto the Lord. But He's saying, as He comes to check the worship, He comes Himself with authority and power. And He says, to check the grievousness with which the false pulpits have treated the word of God falsely. Grievously they've handled it. But He's coming to correct worship and establish righteousness. And He says, in the process, He's also long-suffering. He gives you time to repent in the meantime. The hour of God coming to you, Kisumu. Kisumu World Expo 2019. Beautiful time in the history of the church. So when God does visit, and right now it's bigger because God the Father is coming by cloud. He said, I am visiting you. I'm the living God. I am doing it real time. That you may know I'm alive up here. I'm real time with you because my servants are there. The mega prophets of the Bible. That you may know that those that prepare the way for the coming of the Messiah are now here. Kisumu World Expo 2019, December 21, 22.
What have you seen, my son Michael?
Umeona nini mwanangu
The
Michael?
dreadful cloud of God is over the tent, my
Wingu la
lords.
kutisha la Bwana la ajabu liko juu ya
The
hema.
cloud is over the tent.
Wingu liko juu ya hema.
Look at the cloud. Look at the cloud on the tent.
Tazama wingu katika hema.
Wait.
Woi.
And I said, the cloud is coming. I said, the cloud is coming.
Nilisema wingu linakuja.
I said the cloud would come to the tent. I want the rain. Ninataka mvua. it is never, never. Not me.
Unawezaje kuhubiri baada ya
Not
vita?
me.
Sio mimi.
Ay, 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 ay.
Ayayayayayaya.
He has done it. He has
Ameitenda.
come.
Amekuja.
He has honored his servant.
Amewaheshimu watumishi wake.
Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. The way he honors his servant.
Jinsi ambavyo
Woi, 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 woi.
watumishi wake.
Ay, ay.
Ai, ai. Ai.
There is no other religion.
Hakuna dini nyingine.
There is no other church.
Hakuna kanisa
It
lingine.
is only this one.
Ni hili tu.
It is only this one.
Ni hili tu.
There is no other religion.
Hakuna dini lingine.
Ay, there is no other. There is no other. Ay. It is not there. It's
Hakuna
only this
nyingine.
one. There is no other religion.
Hakuna dini nyingine. Ni
There
hili
is
tu.
no church. There is no church. There is no church. There is no church. It's only this church. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, oh, Jehovah, Jehovah.
Yehova.
Ay. Oh, I told you.
Nini mwambie?
Ay, 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 Jehovah has come. Jehovah.
Yehova. Yehova.
That is my God.
Huyo ni Mungu wangu.
The Lord has spoken to me again right now. The Lord took me into a hospital in Asia. There's a very big distress there. You see a lot of people swarming into the hospital. I see the lack of equipment now. There is no equipment. The doctors are running up and down and many people flooding into the hospital. The Lord took me to Asia and I see a lot of people rushing into the hospital, being rushed. There's the procedure being done on somebody. And then there is testing. So somebody told me, well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, we don't have equipment. What we do is take this, and they will take a little and put on the culture to see. So there is going to be a big distress that is going to come into Asia, a big disease. Distress of disease is coming. There will be a disease emergency in Asia. That distress will be like none other, a distress that has not been seen. This kind of distress, like God has shown me just a few minutes ago when He took me to Asia, will develop on this earth, will throb on this planet Earth.
Tonight there's growing concern about a new and rare pneumonia-like virus that has caused at least 2 deaths and has spread from China to other countries in Asia.
Fears about the spread of a deadly new virus grow. A doctor at the hospital in Wuhan, where this all began, has been speaking to the BBC and said the virus is now spreading at an alarming rate. The hospitals have been flooding with thousands of patients who wait hours to see a doctor. You can imagine their panic.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are continuing to monitor the outbreak of the mysterious new coronavirus tonight. The number of confirmed cases in China keeps soaring nearly a week into the biggest quarantine in history.
Chinese authorities are under pressure to control the spread of a new deadly disease.
Concern is growing over a possible outbreak of a new SARS-like virus. The flu-like mystery illness reported in China.
This is Al Jazeera.
A new virus with no known treatment or vaccine.
It came without warning, and it spreads like wildfire. But until today, its origins remain a mystery. It was first discovered in Wuhan, the capital city of China's Hubei province, late last year. China alerted the World Health Organization of a mysterious virus outbreak in Wuhan.
The Lord has spoken to me again right now. There will be a disease emergency in Asia, a distress that has not been seen. This kind of distress, like God has shown me just a few minutes ago when He took me to Asia, will develop on this earth, will throb on this planet Earth.
This is CNN Breaking News.
First, we have an update on the spread of the deadly coronavirus. Now, a short time ago, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak an international public health emergency. The organization's Director General explains why they've taken this step.
The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China. Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread in other countries.
This is an NBC News special report.
Coronavirus has hit countries around the world, sparking public health emergencies in places as different from one another as Iran, Italy, China, and the United States.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
The Lord has spoken to me again right now. There will be a disease emergency in Asia, a distress that has not been seen. This kind of distress, like God has shown me just a few minutes ago when He took me to Asia, will develop on this earth, will throb on this planet Earth.
The coronavirus outbreak sparked a global emergency.
The outbreak of the coronavirus in China has finally been declared a global health emergency after a rapid escalation in the number of infections during the past week.
All right, we have breaking news now. Let's get to it. It has to do with COVID-19. And the World Health Organization has just declared coronavirus It is a global pandemic at this point.
It feels like this week was when it changed for Britain. Just 7 days ago, life was almost normal. Now, many are wondering when life on these islands will be normal again.
We're going to interrupt things here for a second because we've received breaking news from the UK where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care. We talked earlier in our coverage about his hospitalization because of coronavirus.
The CDC tonight says Europe is the new epicenter of the epidemic, with 70% of new cases originating here. And countries are falling like dominoes, one shutting down after another. Ireland now closing schools. The Irish Prime Minister today with President Trump.
We need to do this for a couple of weeks to make sure the virus doesn't spread.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing he will self-isolate after his wife got flu symptoms after a trip to the UK.
And in Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel now in isolation after her personal doctor, who she saw Friday, tested positive.
Daily life has been disrupted. And now a wave of school closures. And many employees are being told to work from home, including everyone at Apple headquarters in Cupertino, California, and Microsoft.
This is Al Jazeera.
And Iran has temporarily freed about 85,000 prisoners in response to the pandemic. Last week, the UN asked Tehran to release them to help stem the spread of the virus.
The Lord took me into a hospital in Asia. There's a very big distress there. You see a lot of people swarming into the hospital. I see the lack of equipment now. There is no equipment. The doctors are running up and down. Well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, "We don't have equipment."
Well, healthcare workers in Italy facing some excruciating decisions about allocating life-saving treatment because they are being so overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases, and they are begging for help tonight for equipment, for personnel.
We are in desperate need of both nurses and physicians, together with ventilators and dispositives for protection.
Hospital resources are overwhelmed, and there are simply not enough ventilators to go around.
We know that doctors in places like Italy and New York have had to make some heartbreaking decisions about who lives and who dies.
This is an NBC News special report.
The global coronavirus outbreak has pushed the U.S. healthcare system to its brink. Hospitals are already running out of basic supplies like masks, eye gear, gowns, and ventilators.
Where you have a problem with ventilators, we're working very hard trying to find. Nobody in their wildest dreams would have ever thought that we need tens of thousands of ventilators. This is something that's very unique to what happened.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo told the country to sit up and pay attention to New York.
Where we are today, you will be in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We are your future.
With nearly 1 out of 4 New York coronavirus patients in intensive care, Cuomo outlined a desperate need: 40,000 more ICU beds and 30,000 ventilators.
Where are they? Where are the ventilators? FEMA says we're sending 400 ventilators. Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators.
In Teaneck, New Jersey, the crisis is just as dire.
It's incredible, and it hits so fast.
Dr. Serge Seger with Holy Name Medical Center says his entire hospital has just 10 ventilators left, and they're running dangerously low on supplies.
In the UK, Health Minister Matt Hancock has acknowledged that the existing stock of 5,000 ventilators is inadequate.
Some of the biggest ventilator manufacturers like Medtronic plc, Philips, Drägerwerk AG, and Getinge are racing to ramp up production. Philips has said that the company is looking to double the ventilators that it makes per week from 1,000 to 2,000. The UK government has turned to a wartime solution, asking manufacturers like vacuum company Dyson and luxury car maker Rolls-Royce to produce essential equipment. President Trump has also encouraged automakers to aid in the production of ventilators.
Across the globe, the coronavirus has overwhelmed even the most advanced healthcare systems. Many patients in a critical condition have to be placed on a ventilator. Right now, there's a critical global shortage.
Life-saving ventilators, assembled and packed in the hundreds. Medical supplies desperately needed in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic.
Usually there's not much demand for ventilators worldwide, but nobody expected this virus outbreak. It put a lot of pressure on ventilator makers.
Supplies made in China have also been included in emergency aid packages sent by Beijing to more than 80 countries in need.
The Lord took me into a hospital in Asia. There's a very big distress there. You see a lot of people swarming into the hospital. The doctors are running up and down, and many people flooding into the hospital. The Lord took me to Asia, and I see a lot of people rushing into the hospital, being rushed.
Wuhan's hospitals are struggling to cope, and medical staff are under intolerable pressure. With patient numbers surging, construction begins on 2 new hospitals, with one scheduled to open in just over a week.
A shocker from Mumbai. A video posted on Twitter by BJP MLA Nitesh Rane shows coronavirus patients in a hospital ward lying next to corpses wrapped in body bags. This horrifying clip is from Sion Hospital, which is run by the city's municipal corporation. At least 7 bodies are seen in the ward as patients are being treated in adjoining beds. Some patients have family members attending to them, apparently ignoring bodies right behind them.
A doctor at the hospital in Wuhan, where this all began, has been speaking to the BBC and said the virus is now spreading at an alarming rate. The hospitals have been flooding with thousands of patients who wait hours to see a doctor. You can imagine their panic.
This is an ABC News special report.
Italy's health service, one of the best in the world, is overwhelmed.
Here in Lombardy, it's overwhelming. These patients are critically ill. In all probability, they won't make it. They turn the patients over to relieve the pressure on the lungs. Without doubt, she wouldn't survive.
In Bergamo, the worst-hit town in northern Italy, they talk of a whole generation being wiped out. The healthcare system simply wasn't prepared for this.
There can be no funerals in Italy, only names in the paper. Pages and pages of obituaries for those claimed by corona. The dead laid to rest unaccompanied, their mourning families, some of them millions, still stuck at home.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Every corridor, every corner, every ward.
Bring the juice. Bring the juice.
Every inch of Brookdale Hospital Medical Center in Brooklyn now inundated with those suffering from COVID-19.
Hospitals are under siege.
All the patients in this room, all the feet that you see, they all have COVID.
No more gowns in the whole hospital, no more masks. She said they had no choice but to reuse the masks. You can see a long line of people, everyone wearing masks, waiting to be tested for COVID-19.
Now it is Latin America's turn to face the pain of the COVID-19 storm that spread west across the globe. In Brazil, the health service is ill-prepared. In truth, it's already overwhelmed. They know this.
Corpses wrapped in plastic and left on the sidewalk in Ecuador. Trucks overloaded, carrying coffins on racks bolted on the side of the trailer. Authorities are handling the bodies of coronavirus victims in Guayaquil, the epicenter of the outbreak.
Come out
Bwana ametoka
with a storm
akiwa na dhoruba
to strike the earth
kuigonga dunia
for their iniquity,
kwa ajili ya udhalimu wao,
for their sin,
kwa ajili ya dhambi yao,
for their blackmail,
kwa ajili ya
for their blasphemy,
kwa ajili ya makufuru yao,
abomination, immorality,
usherati.
Hallelujah,
hallelujah,
kutawaka on that day.
Katika siku hiyo,
the cloud of God is coming from heaven to visit the earth. So this appertains to New Zealand, the United States of America, Europe, everywhere. It's coming to earth. The cloud of God is coming. The cloud of God is coming. Europe, Finland, Spain, United States, South America, Concepcion, Chile, all the way to Brisbane, Canberra, to Gisborne, New Zealand, the end of the earth. South Korea, Incheon, Boryong, Busan, Beijing, Shanghai, Fushan. The Lord is coming to town. And yet the Lord is so patient. He gives you time, blessed people, between the announcement today and then, that you may not be afflicted by his coming. So there's going to be a big distress that is going to come into Asia. A big disease, distress of disease is coming. That distress will be like none other, a distress that has not been seen. This kind of distress, like God has shown me just a few minutes ago when he took me to Asia, will develop on this earth, will throb on this planet earth.
Right now, the future's not looking good. The world economy is expected to grow at its slowest rate. That means less wealth and fewer jobs.
This is CNN Breaking News.
In the meantime, the coronavirus pandemic has contributed to a major stock market sell-off, and today we saw history and high anxiety for investors here in the US. The Dow Jones plunged more than 2,000 points. That is how the Dow Jones ended the day. It is the biggest drop in a single day ever. So you're witnessing history being made here. And it was the biggest percentage loss since way back in 2008.
This is Nightline.
The rapid spread of the virus also impacting the global economy, now shut down by the outbreak.
The growing coronavirus outbreak is causing chaos in global financial markets. It's freezing supply chains. It's causing companies all over the world to create work-from-home plans and ban business travel.
The U.S. jobs market is in a crisis unlike any other in history. More than 40 million Americans are out of work as entire industries have frozen during the coronavirus pandemic. The unemployment rate has skyrocketed to its highest level since the Great Depression. Americans have taken to the streets to protest racial and economic inequality.
This is the worst economic crisis to rack this country since the Great Depression of the 1930s, and reveals just how close America is to financial hardship.
It's creating a cascading threat to the travel industry and the millions of people who depend on it.
If there's nobody traveling on planes, there's nobody staying in hotels. If no one's staying in hotels, no one's going to restaurants, no one's using taxi cabs, Ubers, chauffeured cars, or anything else. Everything kind of stops, and that's the problem.
The cruise industry has been particularly hard hit. Last month, thousands of people were confined on board 2 cruise ships amid fears of spreading the virus.
This kind of distress, like God has shown me just a few minutes ago when he took me to Asia, will develop on this earth, will throb on this planet earth.
The world is experiencing unprecedented events right now as the coronavirus pandemic affects the lives of millions of people. Governments are putting cities into lockdown, and they are urging everyone to avoid public spaces and to work from home.
The world's largest COVID-19 lockdown is now in effect for India's more than 1.3 billion people. The Indian Prime Minister giving just 4 hours notice until the lockdown came into effect overnight. Police barricaded roads to restrict movement. The government had already shut down all air and train travel, businesses and schools.
This is Madrid, one of the most vibrant cities in the world, now utterly subdued. Spain has told its people to stay at home.
I want to begin with some breaking news out of Italy. All of Italy is now on lockdown. All of Italy is now on lockdown over the coronavirus. Italy's Prime Minister making the announcement at a news conference.
Tonight, 2.5 million residents in one Korean city ordered to stay indoors after a woman who authorities called a super spreader infected dozens in her own church.
This is an NBC News special report.
Tonight, as millions of Americans search for comfort, places of worship are taking unprecedented steps. The church is suspending all public gatherings worldwide. From Chicago to Detroit, mosques are canceling Friday prayers. In New York and New Jersey, some synagogues are doing the same for Shabbat services. In Washington, D.C., Episcopal churches, including the National Cathedral, are shutting down.
This breaking news, Rome's Catholic churches have now been ordered to close, all of them, because of the coronavirus. This is a move believed to be unprecedented in modern time.
The Lord took me to Asia, and I see a lot of people rushing into the hospital, being rushed with the procedure being done on somebody, and then there is testing. So somebody told me, well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, we don't have equipment. What we do is take this and they will take a little and put on the culture to see. A big disease, the stress of disease is coming.
This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mariam Namazi. Scientists around the world are now racing to find a vaccine and a cure for the coronavirus. Governments are pledging millions of dollars of taxpayers' money for research in both public and private firms.
Scientists racing to find a vaccine.
So the minute we made the diagnosis of the first case in Australia, we knew how significant that was, and we knew that we wanted to culture the virus.
In a major breakthrough, Australian scientists become the first outside China to isolate the virus in a laboratory. CSIRO scientists begin growing the virus in their highest security laboratory, reserved for the most deadly pathogens.
The most important thing that we're doing at the moment is growing the virus to produce more of it so that we can understand more about the characteristics of this virus and also how it behaves in our biological model.
In late January 2020, Chinese scientists in Shanghai released the fully sequenced genome of the novel coronavirus that was wreaking havoc in Hubei province. The pressure to develop a coronavirus vaccine grows each day as the number of infected people rises and the death toll climbs even higher.
Corona means crown in Latin, named because of the spikes on the virus's outer coat. Scientists are at war with COVID-19. Dozens of laboratories are now battlegrounds in the race for a vaccine. Here at Oxford University, volunteers' blood samples are prepared for testing. No single company or laboratory can do this alone. It requires international effort and resources. The world's best brains have been mobilized.
The Lord has come out
Bwana ametoka
with a storm
akiwa na dhoruba
to strike the earth
kuigonga dunia
for their iniquity,
kwa ajili ya udhalimu wao,
for their sin,
kwa ajili ya dhambi yao,
for their blackmail,
kwa ajili ya
for their blasphemy,
kwa ajili ya makufuru yao,
abomination, immorality,
usherati.
Hallelujah,
hallelujah,
kutawaka
kutawaka
on that day.
Katika siku hiyo.